Hi, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from StreetScores, and we have a lot to discuss from the past couple of days because a few updates coming out from Monday and Tuesday. We're here to dive into all of those tonight, Tuesday night, going into Wednesday morning. Shouts out to my late night crew. But the Washington Commanders went and signed a playmaking wide receiver. Does he have any juice left? We're going to dive into his history and what he could potentially be adding to this team. And should this mean we should possibly be worried about Terry McLaurin's injury since they're going out signing wide receivers? Got to dive into all of that. Also, Washington Commanders got some great news as far as Jayden and John Bates injury updates, but we also got some bad injury news as well. So there's some good news, some bad news when it comes to the injuries. I'm gonna give y'all both and what it may mean for the team. Also, I have some wild Washington Commanders stats after that Falcons loss that I also want to give you. And hey, man, even some like power rankings where some people feel like, that was just, backup quarterback. Jayden were there. They'd probably still be straight. There are power rankings out there that still feel like we're a top 8 NFL team. So I know the fan base is feeling a little down, but I want to include that part in the video just to let you know that like people around the national media are still looking at the Commanders like, hey, these guys are still potentially contenders here once they get everything going and healthy. But before we dive into everything, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinion video just like this. So make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Really appreciate y'all for supporting every single video. Shouts out to my watch to the end game, man. WTTEG in the building. Shouts out to my late night crew. I'm recording this right now. It's 12:58 a.m. Eastern time. By the time it gets to y'all, it'll be like 2 a.m. So shouts out to y'all. Shouts out the Noti gang too, man. We got to start showing more love to the notification gang that's there as soon as the videos get released, man. So shouts out to all y'all. It's crazy because I'm still working on some of the like description stuff behind the scenes, and I'm already seeing y'all liking and leaving comments on the video. I'm like, yo, y'all going crazy. So I appreciate y'all too. Without further ado, let's go dive into this video right now, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so first of all, we got to talk about how the Washington Commanders signed a wide receiver that has some history of doing some serious playmaking. But granted, he is getting older, and it has been like a couple of years since he's been a super playmaker, but maybe he has something left in the tank. I'm not even about to sit here and act like and play it out for the next few minutes while we're talking about this wide receiver, that this guy has a chance to come in and be like a wide receiver 1 or anything, or like a super game changer. I'm not even trying to sell y'all on that dream at all. We're going to get that out the way early. But we got to dive into whether or not this guy may still potentially have some juice to him, and if this potentially is bad news for the Terry McLaurin diagnosis. We're going to dive into that. But first, take it all the way back to the beginning. The Commanders ended up signing veteran wide receiver Robbie Chosen, aka Robbie Anderson, what he used to be known as, to their practice squad. I want to emphasize the fact that this is to their practice squad, not to the 53-man roster. I feel like if this was a guy that they were expecting to come in immediately and ball out, like say we go out there and trade for an elite receiver or something like that, like a top 20 wide receiver, they're not going to the practice squad when they first get here. That's not just automatic protocol for a receiver that we bring in. Robbie Chosen is going to the practice squad because they don't exactly have high expectations for this guy immediately coming in. Now, if he goes to the practice squad, he looks good in like a week's worth of practices, maybe 2 weeks worth of practices, then maybe he'll be ready to go out there. They'll elevate him and allow him to play in future games. But this is not somebody that they're automatically bringing in to go out there and play immediately and contribute. You know what I'm saying? It's not like he's going to be brought in and immediately play over guys like Jalen Lane and Luke McCaffrey. It's not that case at all. Shouts out to Commanders Wire for this quick breakdown. They said the Washington Commanders are currently dealing with some injuries at the wide receiver position. It's a lot of them, bro. It's bad. In week 4, the team had to play without Terry McLaurin and Noah Brown, and those two wide receivers have combined for 13 catches for 185 yards this season. Mind you, Terry had to miss a game this past week against the Falcons, so that counts against those stats. And then Noah Brown hasn't played since what, maybe week 1, maybe week 2 against the Packers. I think he may have played a little bit against the Packers, but those guys have contributed a total of 13 catches for 185 yards, and basically between the two of them playing like, I guess, 3.5 games total between all of them. So that is a ton of experience missing, and it's already been missing, just to let you know. But against the Falcons, Deebo Samuel picked up a lot of the slack, and Luke McCaffrey had a touchdown. He's starting to really improve and develop right in front of our eyes, thank goodness. But it's clear that some more depth is needed. And to help remedy the situation, the Commanders brought in an experienced veteran on Tuesday. According to NFL insider Adam Schefter, Robbie Anderson, or Robbie Chosen now, was added to the Commanders practice squad. Again, this was put out there by Adam Schefter. That was the first person I saw mention it. So this is like a pretty big thing, the fact that Adam Schefter is tweeting about it. But again, I want to make sure I lower y'all expectations before y'all get too excited. This is not somebody that's going to come in and potentially be a game changer. At least, I mean, never say never, but it's highly unlikely. I'm going to let you know that now. Shouts out to Tom Shad. He brings up a good point. That Chosen is 32 years old, and is probably best known for his stints with the Jets and the Panthers. We're going to dive into that a little later. And he had one catch for Miami in 2024. But hey, man, the Washington Commanders need some wide receiver depth right now. Just to dive into where he's been recently. Chosen signed with the San Francisco 49ers this offseason, but did not make the final roster. And that's what, and mind you, I really want to emphasize the fact that they have a ridiculous amount of injuries. Like going into the season, Brandon Ayuk was already on like IR. Ricky Pearsall, I think he was either hurt going into the regular season or very early on. Like this is a very banged up wide receiver group, and Chosen still ended up on the practice squad going into the season, mind you. And then he was released a week later after the 49ers even sustained more injuries. They just chose to go find some other guys from other teams to take his place. He remained a free agent until being signed by the Commanders on Tuesday. So he's gone basically like 4 weeks without being on the team. Now he joins the Commanders. In 2024, Chosen played in 2 games for the Miami Dolphins and caught just 1 pass for 5 yards. Hardly explosive. So even like last year, he didn't do much. However, in the past, Chosen has been a reliable receiver, but it has been a while. Back in 2021 with the Carolina Panthers, Chosen caught 53 passes for 519 yards and 5 touchdowns. The receiver's best season came in 2020, the year before that, when he caught 95 passes for 1,096 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, he did have a 1,000-yard season as recently as 2020, but at the same time, the last 1,000-yard receiver that we tried to bring in and see if he had anything left in the tank, and Michael Gallup, it didn't work out. So just because you've had a 1,000-yard season at some point in your career doesn't automatically mean that you're going to come here and be a strong contributor. Also with the Panthers, overall Chosen has 379 catches for 5,082 yards and 30 touchdowns in 122 games for 4 different teams. And there's a few receivers that you can put together and still don't match up to that on our roster right now. Notably, Chosen was with the Commanders offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury in Arizona during the 2022 season, but mind you, during that season, he didn't necessarily do a lot there. And speaking of 2022, that's the last season that he's played a lot of games. He played in 16 games, technically only started in 7 of them though. So even then, it wasn't that significant. You got to go again back to Carolina 2021 when he played in 17 games and started 16 of them. The last times that he like really was fully involved with the team where he was a consistent starter game in, game out was 2021. Back in 2022, he was with Carolina for 6 games, started in 5 of them though, and then he was in Arizona with Cliff Kingsbury, played in 10, but only started 2. So Cliff Kingsbury doesn't even seem to be a huge fan of this guy, because when he had him in 2022, he only started in 2 of the 10 games that he played for Cliff Kingsbury. But hey, at least he goes out there and he's available. He's somebody that you can semi-expect to be healthy. He's not like this huge injury red flag, injury risk type of guy. So at least he has that going for him. And then again in 2023, he only played in 9 games. He had 4 receptions for 126 yards. And then in 2024, he played in 2 games and only had 1 catch for 5 yards. That's it. And then again, he hasn't been on the team until we just signed him to our practice squad in 2025. So we'll see what happens from there. Now, I am expecting him to potentially, like, if anybody gets elevated to the 53-man roster to play in a game, I'm not expecting like necessarily this upcoming game against the Chargers, because Robbie Anderson has to come in, even though prior experience with Cliff Kingsbury, maybe that gives him somewhat of an edge, but I don't expect him to play immediately. Again, he's going not to the 53-man roster as we're signing him. We're signing him to the practice squad. Even Preston Smith was signed to the 53-man roster after that Packers game, and he didn't play at all in the Raiders game, and I'm not sure if he played at all even in the Falcons game, and if he did, it was very little, very seldom, if he did play at all. And that's the guy that's on the 53-man roster. Again, to remind you, to really reiterate this, Robbie was signed to the practice squad, so I'm definitely not expecting him to play against the Chargers, but I'm saying all of that to say that I think he may be, you could probably expect him to play in a game sooner than maybe like a Ja'Cory Brooks or a Jacoby Jones. We saw Tay Martin go out there against the Falcons and even have a good route in the catch against them. So like out of the 3 guys on the practice squad, Ja'Cory Brooks, Jacoby Jones, and Tay Martin before we signed Robbie, I think Tay Martin is the guy that's probably above Robbie Anderson right now. Then it's Robbie Anderson, and then it's probably Ja'Cory Brooks and Jacoby Jones under that. I guess Ja'Cory Brooks probably 3rd and Jacoby Jones probably 4th. But, I mean, after Chris Moore had somewhat of a bad, at least at best, inconsistent game against the Falcons, he may be going back to the practice squad. They may go ahead and just give Tay Martin the opportunity and maybe Robbie Anderson as well. Because right now, again, for this upcoming game against the Chargers specifically, again, long term, I do expect at some point maybe Robbie Anderson makes it to the 53-man roster and plays in a game. It won't happen this weekend. So this weekend-wise, what matters right now, as we're going up into this Chargers matchup, Terry McLaurin, more than likely out. Noah Brown, more than likely out. We'll see. Who knows? But more than likely, we're just going to assume those guys are out. So your wide receivers going into that game will be Deebo Samuel, Luke McCaffrey, Jalen Lane. Maybe they'll give Chris Moore another shot, but those are the only available and healthy wide receivers that are on your 53-man roster. When in doubt, they'll probably upgrade Tay Martin again just for that game against the Chargers. Maybe it's Robbie Anderson. We'll see. I mean, hey, at least they aren't sitting on their hands, though. You know what I'm saying? Robbie Anderson, my fault. I got to remember to call him Robbie Chosen. Robbie Chosen may not necessarily be this home run hitting signing that we're just super excited about. He's about to come in and change the game. He's about to go for 500, 700 yards this season. No, he's not that. But at least this is a sign that the Commanders are not sitting on their hands. They are clearly trying to do whatever it takes to turn this team around and to start winning more games. 2-2 is unacceptable, especially since the September part of our schedule was arguably the least difficult. So at least, Chosen may not necessarily be the answer, but that doesn't mean that he can't help. And so shouts out to the Commanders for trying to do something. And mind you, Robbie Anderson, when he was on the Minnesota Dolphins, I believe it was that 2023 season where he actually cooked Pat Surtain, arguably the best defensive player in the entire NFL, easily the best corner in the NFL, and Robbie Anderson beat him for a touchdown. But mind you, those were the Denver Broncos where, when Robbie Chosen scored that touchdown, it was the 4th quarter with 9 minutes left. The score is 63-13. Like that is a completely different Denver Broncos team, but at the same time, he did beat the best corner in the NFL and Pat Surtain for a big-time touchdown, and that was at worst back in 2023. So, maybe that 2 years removed, maybe there's still at least a little bit of that left in the tank. But another way to really look at this signing, though, honestly, is this bad news for Terry McLaurin? Like, are we signing a wide receiver because, hey, we just got some really bad confirmation on Terry McLaurin's injury, and it's something we really need to watch out for. We need to bring in receivers now because we're not expecting Terry McLaurin to come back anytime soon. To be honest with you, I'm going to say no. Because to me, if anything, this sounds more like bad news for Noah Brown and indicative of where his injury is right now, because you don't replace Terry being out long term with Robbie Chosen. Let's be honest here. That's more of like a Noah Brown replacement tier of wide receiver there. Even below that, honestly, if it were Terry they were like that, he was the guy that they're super worried about not returning for a long time, they would probably try to trade for like a top receiver or something like that. But signing Robbie Anderson off the streets straight to the practice squad, not even a 53-man roster, is more of like a Noah Brown replacement potential thing, if anything. And even to reaffirm that, listen to this list of wide receivers names that came in for a workout. Shouts out to Ben Standick for letting us know that in addition to wide receiver Robbie Chosen, they have now who they added to the practice squad, the Commanders also worked out River Craft, who we were talking about way earlier, weeks ago, and Willie Snead. You know what I'm saying? And Craft was with Washington for the final stretch of training camp, if you remember that. And Snead crossed paths with wide receiver coach Bobby Ingram in Baltimore at one point in time. So there's that connection. But off rip, my first thought was, Willie Snead? He's still trying to give it a go? But he's not as old as I thought. When I looked it up, he's only 32, which is the same age as Robbie Chosen. That's not too crazy. And especially over here on the Commanders, where we have the highest average age of any NFL team anyway. But you could just tell from that group of guys that even worked out. And again, the fact that we're not trading for a top receiver, that's more so wide receiver depth potential, not to replace Terry McLaurin, because we need a wide receiver one right now potential at all. So I think, if anything, this is probably a good sign that Terry McLaurin could come back sooner rather than later. We were thinking at some point, it was looking like worst case scenario, he'll come back November, December. But I think even though he won't play against the Chargers, he could be back, you know, soon after that. Maybe against the Bears the week after that. Maybe the Cowboys game at the latest after that. I feel like with Terry McLaurin, but we'll see, because again, we still don't even have an official diagnosis there. And speaking of an official diagnosis, we're going to dive into all of the injury updates that we got for Jayden Daniels, John Bates, Noah Brown, all of those guys. Dan Quinn gave some big time updates, some positive ones, and also some negative ones, including Javonte Jean-Baptiste. But before we get there, shouts out to Sleeper, man. Football is more exciting than ever right now, bro. And you have a chance to 1,000 times your cash with daily fantasy football through Sleeper, man. I'm telling you, when Jayden Daniels comes back against the Chargers, people will remember why he's a top 5 quarterback, bro. Deebo Samuel with Jayden Daniels out has looked like our best player on the entire team. And you can pick on stats for these stars like touchdowns, passing yards, receiving yards, fantasy points, and more for up to 1,000 times your cash on Sleeper, bro. If you're right on your picks, you can win big money, like I just told you. And promo code SCORE, you use that, that's SCORE, you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. You can see on the screen right now, or you can even just click the link at the top of the description of this video and every video on live stream I'm doing all season. And just in case if y'all don't know about combo play, you can even flex your picks. So even if you miss like a pick or two, you can still cash in with combo plays. And of course, it's not just the Commanders in the NFL. You have the NBA, the MLB, NHL, college football, college basketball, and even the WNBA, who is in the playoffs right now. You can get in on that with Sleeper as well. Now let's take a look at some of the things that we can get into. Y'all know me, man. Until I get together my 8-leg where I'm trying to turn $10 into over 1,000. Remember week 1, I turned 10 into 800. I haven't been able to find that same magic so far the next 3 weeks, but I promise y'all I'm gonna get back to it. But until I get back to those severe 8 legs that I like to put together to win big money on, for now, you know me, man, I like to just go to NFL Popular Duos. You can literally just go to the home screen of the app, NFL Popular Duos right there, see all. I'm typically looking for the most bang for your buck, the highest risk ones, which is how I ended up finding this over on Cam Scatterbo anytime touchdown and over on Marvin Harrison touchdown. And hey, this is very risky, but let me explain to you why I think this is quite possible. Let's break it down, because the Saints have a terrible team right now. They don't want to win. They're tanking. You know, the Giants are just bad, and shouts out to them. They just beat the Chargers. They're clearly not tanking. Whereas the Saints it looked like they had a chance to beat the Bills, and they literally just looked like, oh, wait, what are we doing? We want a number 1 overall pick. Let's chill. Let's give this game away to the Bills. You know what I'm saying? These are two completely different franchises. So the Giants are still trying to win. At the very least, make it look like, hey, we switched to our rookie quarterback, and he's balling. Let's win as much as we can with him to get his confidence right for next season. So Cam Scatterbo, if he gets a touchdown against this Saints defense that even though they're still talented, it seems like the team as a whole is giving up. And even from the top management, I feel like they're tanking. I feel like they're telling them, hey, you can play well, but just make sure you simmer it down at the end of the game. I think Cam Scatterbo may end up getting a touchdown against them. Because mind you, he had a touchdown week 2 against Dallas and a touchdown against Kansas City. I think he may be able to get one against this Saints. Again, the entire team is giving up on the season. And then Marvin Harrison touchdown versus arguably the worst defense in the NFL right now in the Tennessee Titans, bro. He may be able to get that. And mind you, he had a touchdown versus that terrible Saints defense we just talked about that the Giants and Cam Scatterbo are about to go against. And then he had a really good game against the Seattle Seahawks with that 1 touchdown he had. If he can get 1 touchdown against this bad Tennessee defense, you may be able to turn 5 into 20, 10 into 40, 20 into 80, you know what I'm saying? If you want to turn 100 into 396, you know what I'm saying? If you're feeling real risky on this, man. And of course, you can do all of this through the Sleeper app. Shouts out to Sleeper, man. Now let's get to the injury updates for the Commanders. All right, so starting with Jayden Daniels, just to run through it real quick. He has missed the last 2 games with a knee injury, of course, and he had a strong workout on Saturday, according to Dan Quinn, and he will go through the medical process of ensuring he's good enough to practice. So that's good to hear. Apparently, he had a strong workout on Saturday. Mind you, he practiced all week. He practiced on Friday even before the Raiders game. Then he practiced all week, limited though. Well, except for he technically was given rest on Friday, but he was limited Wednesday and Thursday leading up to the Falcons game. Rested on Friday, and apparently he had a really strong workout, even though it wasn't a full practice, on Saturday. An emphasis on strong workout sounds like, hey man, this guy's probably ramping up to be a starting quarterback this week, and they may go ahead and just take the chains off of him and let him go ahead and go crazy immediately Wednesday, as in later on today. So shouts out to Dan Quinn for giving us that update. And then bad news, we're going to kind of flip-flop back and forth. So that was the good news with Jayden Daniels, your starting quarterback, your top 5 quarterback in the NFL. Now you have a 7th-round, second-year player that was showing potential, but defensive end Javonte Jean-Baptiste will be out for a while. The exact quote from Dan Quinn after suffering a torn pectoral muscle in Sunday's 34-27 loss at Atlanta. And again, this came directly from Dan Quinn on Monday. Javonte Jean-Baptiste will be placed on injury reserve, so he has to miss at least a minimum of 4 weeks. But the expectation is that he'll be sidelined longer than just the 4 games that are required when you're placed on the IR. While Quinn was non-committal on a specific timeline before surgery, he said the torn pecs normally require recoveries that last months, not weeks. Quote, we're bummed for him. He's worked hard to come back from injuries and starting to make his move again, unquote. And also, quote, definitely a setback for him and a blow for us as well, unquote. Javonte Jean-Baptiste, 25, has carved out a rotational role for the Commanders defense despite being a 7th-round pick in 2024 by Washington. He appeared in 15 games, 1 start, recording 19 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, and 3 quarterback hits. And mind you, before his injury against the Falcons, the game before against the Raiders, he got a sack, bro. You know, he was the backup to Dietrich Wise. Then Dietrich Wise gets hurt against the Packers. We lose him for the season. So then he gets his first start against the Raiders the next week, gets a sack, but then goes into this Falcons game, ends up getting hurt, sadly. I'm really sad to hear that, bro. As soon as he finally, it seemed like something clicked. You know, it would be nice to get him back at some point this season. We at the very least will get him at some point next season, but I really wish we had him right now because something was really starting to click for him. I think he was starting to really develop into a guy that can get consistent pressure, but we'll see. That's just something we'll have to revisit a while from now because, again, he's more likely going to be out for months, maybe to the end of the season. But again, same injury as Jonathan Allen last year where we thought we lost him for the rest of the season. Then he came back like the last couple of weeks of the regular season and then played for us in the postseason. So maybe same situation for Javonte Jean-Baptiste. We'll see. But now that also means that Preston Smith will finally play and also may play a lot. I mean, he may actually be a starting edge rusher opposite of Dorrance Armstrong now that both Dietrich Wise and Javonte Jean-Baptiste ahead of him on the depth chart are out of the way due to injuries. But now, moving on to potentially good news. It sounds like John Bates will be back on the field this week versus the Chargers. So not only are we potentially getting Jayden Daniels back, we're potentially getting John Bates back as well. Because John Bates does like a weekly bit with like JP Finley and B Mitch and those guys on the radio. And his update was, quote, I'm hoping that's the case. I'm thinking I'm going to get phased back into practice this week, unquote, when talking about returning to the Commanders for week 5, this matchup against the Chargers. That is great to hear. And Dan Quinn, even himself, back on Monday, said that McLaurin, Noah Brown, and Bates are all trending in the right direction. Like his exact quote, are trending in the right direction. So we'll see where this goes. We're going to learn a lot more today, though. So that's the great thing. You know, later on today, as in Wednesday, October 1st, because right now, I'm recording this as 1:20 a.m. right now. When Dan Quinn speaks to the media, more than likely before practice, we'll get an official injury report as well from the team itself after practice, where you'll see the injury report from the Commanders and the Chargers, who was limited, who didn't participate at all, who was full, what are the injuries and all that type of stuff. And of course, I'll update y'all on that when it comes out later on today, so stay tuned. Now, before we get up out of here, I also wanted to give y'all some random stats and info. First up, shouts out to Computer Cowboy for pointing out the fact that the top graded quarterbacks in week 4 were Marcus Mariota 1, Dak Prescott 2, and Michael Penix 3. So that just shows you how bad our defense was, but it also shows you that Marcus Mariota had a great game. I feel like there were some things that, like, if we had Jayden Daniels, I feel like Jayden Daniels is better equipped to win a shootout, but Marcus Mariota was not bad. He does not deserve the blame for that loss, but yes, both can be true. Marcus Mariota wasn't the reason that we lost, but also we missed Jayden Daniels because Jayden Daniels probably could have still, even out there with that terrible defense, probably could have won a shootout to win the game. And also, with his ability to convert third downs and keep the chains moving and win time of possession, he keeps our defense off the field, leaving them, they're not as susceptible to the explosive plays and the opposing offense. They're not as tired because they're not on the field as often. So, things like that can happen. But again, the main thing I want to bring up is that shout out to Marcus Mariota. Jayden Daniels is better, but Marcus Mariota hooped, though. We're not just going to say and act like he didn't. Also, shouts out to Josh Taylor for pointing out the fact that the Falcons have the 9th highest sack rate in the league on defense. And Laramie Tunsil against the Falcons had 0 sacks allowed, 0 QB hits allowed, and just 1 hurry, which was his 1 pressure of the entire game. Laramie Tunsil even though the game itself overall was ugly, he's one of the very few bright spots for us. Also, shouts out to Hale Maryland. He brings up a great point. After the first quarter of the season, the rookie edge rushers that we would have drafted and that most of us wanted us to draft, Mike Green has 0 sacks, Donovan Ezaraku has 0 sacks, Nick Scorton has 0 sacks, and that JT guy also has 0 sacks. Now, granted, there's a lot of season left to play. Even like Princely, he has 1 sack, but Landon Jackson, Ashton Jalade, Oluwafemi Oladejo, all of these guys, 0 sacks, dog. So I know we were panicking about not drafting an edge rusher, but maybe this just wasn't the time. Maybe this is just not a good year to get an edge rusher that can impact this team immediately. Now, granted, I still feel like a lot of those guys in that list, like Donovan Ezaraku and Mike Green, are going to eventually become great edge rushers that get consistent pressure on the quarterback and going for double-digit sacks. But for all of the panic of, man, our defense is this bad because we didn't take these edge rushers in the draft, may not necessarily. Of course, it's like a hypothetical, different universe type of scenario, so who knows? There's no way to prove either way wrong or correct, but at the end of the day, none of those rookie edge rushers have just immediately started out the first 4 weeks being game-changing players for the teams that drafted them. Also, shouts out to John Com. He pointed out the fact that every loss leads to this team is old talk. Here's a look. Washington has 16 players aged 30 plus. Of those, 5 are full-time. McLaurin, Wagner, Tunsil, Wiley, and Ertz. That's it. While 2 others play, Von Miller and Eddie Goldman, they play, but they don't play a lot. So the other 9 are just sitting there chilling. They don't even make up like the actual impactful part of the roster that really plays on Sundays and have any sort of influence on whether we win or lose the game. And then on defense, 3 players are 30 plus, and only one of those guys is a starter. That's a great point by John Con. People make fun of our roster being old, but it's not even like a lot of the old guys play a lot, if at all, honestly. We have a very young core here that we're working on. I'm excited about the future, basically. Also, the Commanders are ranked 16th in ESPN's power rankings after the loss to the Falcons. We dropped 10 spots. So ESPN, after we lost to the Packers and then beat the Raiders, they felt like we were the 6th best team in the NFL still. Now, granted, I feel like that loss to the Falcons was a little fluky. I feel like the injuries had a lot to do with it. They had injuries as well, though, so no excuses, but I don't feel like we've just fallen off of the face of the earth and we're just no longer a top 10 team. But so there are certain people overreacting like that, but Walter Football still has us as the 8th best team in the NFL. He said good teams tend to play well with their backup quarterbacks as long as they're not battling elite defenses. Walter Football pointed out the fact that the Redskins beat the Raiders with Marcus Mariota, but couldn't do so against the Falcons, who have a top 10 EPA defense. The Falcons defense is actually pretty solid, a top 10 defense when you're looking at like the advanced stats, the advanced metrics that take everything into account rather than just looking at surface stats like yards and completions and stuff like that or points. What are the advanced stats saying? And even then we scored 27 points. The problem was our defense. And if our defense can get it together, I can see why Walter Football feels like we're still a top 8 team in the NFL. And I'm the reason I'm bringing that up because a lot of our fans are very pessimistic right now. They feel like the sky's falling, they're doom and gloom. But you even have guys like Walter Football, no attachment to the Commanders whatsoever. No bias towards, for, or against. He's not a Commanders fan. He's nothing. And he still feels like we're a top 8 team. So just to throw that out there. Also, just to let you know, Commanders Realm brought up a good point. The Washington's next 1 p.m. kickoff is not until December 7th, y'all. We have 8 straight games that are 9:30 a.m. at Madrid, like way later down the line. We have 4:25 p.m. games and 8:20 p.m. games. And 7 of those 8 games are nationally televised. So be ready for a lot of the spotlight. Like even this upcoming game against the Chargers, it's at 4:25 p.m., but it's America's game of the week. You know what I'm saying? Stop playing with us. So it's straight prime time until we finally get to December 7th when we play the Vikings, and it's finally at 1 p.m. So buckle up there. Also, before we go, shouts out to Josh Taylor. Brings up a good point. He said a lot of fans were critical of Marcus Mariota on Sunday. Need to see what Jake Browning is doing with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins right now. I promise you Mariota is the best backup in the league. I agree. I probably should have brought that up earlier, but the reason I brought that up now is shout out to Mark Tyler of Hogshaven. He did his Commanders versus Falcons studs and does. Just to dive into it just quickly, and I strongly urge you to go check out this article because he did a full dive. He even includes clips of the plays that they made in the game. Great article. But his studs were Deebo Samuel, agree. Luke McCaffrey, agree. Mike Sanders still sort of disagree. He had a good interception, but other than that, you know, it was kind of a sloppy day. And then Matt Gay, I definitely agree there. Now your duds, Bobby Wagner. That's kind of one that's iffy too. Because I would say on a down-to-down basis, Bobby Wagner was better than Mike Sanford still. It's just that he had that terrible allowance of Bijan Robinson basically having his career day in receiving yards and overall yards because Bobby Wagner can't cover him. I feel like if anything, that's more on Joe Wood Jr.'s fault to even allow Bobby Wagner to be in a situation like that. Marshall Lattimore, definitely a dud. Quan Martin, definitely playing like a dud right now. Also, the defensive line's missed tackles. We had missed tackles. That was a big problem for the entire team. But even our defensive line, like schematically or whatever, we were in the right spots defensive line-wise. The running backs just kept breaking tackles in the backfield. And then speaking of schematically, Joe Wood Jr., also a big dud. Just to kind of run through that real quick, but you can also, of course, go check out that article because he even has a section of notes where they're not studs or duds. He's just pointing out specific things like Bill, Marcus Mariota, Ben Sinnott, like him having some blocks out, Jalen Lane and stuff like that. So I definitely urge you to go check out the article. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know if you feel about everything discussed video. Please still follow that like button, still follow the subscription button, still follow the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Really appreciate y'all, man. Shouts out. I mean, if you're still watching me right now and you're still listening to me this far into the video, over 30 minutes in, salute to you. Appreciate y'all. Shouts out to my Watch to the End gang, man. WTTEG in the building, man. Shouts out to my late night crew for those of y'all that are watching this late night. And if you're watching this late night, you have to be Noti gang and vice versa. If you're Noti gang, then that must mean you're watching this late night. So y'all kind of go hand in hand because a lot of the videos that I put out are late night, even though I want to kind of get y'all that Wednesday injury report update as soon as possible. So that one may not come out late at night. But shouts out to the Watch the End gang, late night crew, notification gang. Of course, leave a like on the way out and let me know in the comment section how you feel about everything discussed in the video. Especially, how do you feel about us signing Robbie Chosen at wide receiver? Do you think he has the potential to be one of our saviors at wide receiver? Do you think that even when our wide receiver core is fully healthy, you have Terry, Noah Brown, and Deebo Samuel, he can still be impactful? And do you think he can carry some of the load with Terry and Noah Brown out? Let me know how you feel about all of the injury updates that I gave you. Are you optimistic that we'll get Jayden Daniels and John Bates in this upcoming game against the Chargers? Maybe even Terry McLaurin? Let me know how you feel about all of that and all of the stats I gave you the last third of the video as well. Really appreciate y'all. Leave a like on the way out. I'm going to catch y'all later. I'm out.